If needlework is your passion, whether you're stitching by hand, machine, or mixing it all up, you're going to want to hear about the Mr. XStitch Contemporary Needlework Prize 2025. This prize celebrates the best in modern stitch, and it's open to creatives from all around the world, whether you're a student or an emerging artist or a seasoned professional. And the best part, you don't have to send your work anywhere. Just upload high-resolution images to a private folder we will send you after you enter. You can enter more than one category, for instance, hand embroidery and 3D textiles. Just grab an entry for each one. And if you've got a student ID, you can get 50% off the entry price as well. The deadline for entering is 30th of June 2025, and entries are now open at xstitchmag.com/prize-entry. Thanks to our brilliant sponsors, Bookmarked Hub by Search Press and David and Charles, and the legends at Lowry Workstands. If you've got the stitch bug, this is your time. Show us what you've got. Enter the prize now. Visit xstitchmag.com/prize-entry to get your ticket today. Kathy Halper is a mixed media artist based in Illinois whose work explores natural life and the joy of missing out. I first came across Kathy's work back in 2010 when she did a series of embroideries that were exploring the, at the time, emerging world of Facebook posting and teenagers sharing their antics, and I've been a fan of her work ever since. Kathy is a creative force. She likes working in all different kinds of media, whether it's sculptures in ceramics, paintings, or indeed needlework. And in this first part of our Needle Exchange, we explore how Kathy started her textile journey, and we talk about the joy of missing out and how there's a lot of pleasure to be found in that, as well as discovering a shared passion for naive art and talking about the kickback that Kathy got when she started posting her pieces about teenage antics. We'll be back next week with the second part of the conversation, and be sure to check out Kathy's website and Instagram in the show notes. Do sign up for her newsletter as well if you can, because it's always a good read. Thanks as always for being part of the show. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you're enjoying previous episodes of Needle Exchange. And if you like this kind of thing, leave a review on your favourite podcasting platform telling people how much you're enjoying this. That would be a great help. It will keep me going as I enjoy having more and more needle exchanges with more and more textile artists. So yeah, enjoy the show, enjoy Kathy's work, be sure to check her out, and I'll see you next time for the second part of our Needle Exchange. Take care, enjoy the show. I would like to talk with you first about the joy of missing out. Just broadly, tell me about it, because I think it's something that hopefully happens to the best of us, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think particularly it's a moment in time right now. The whole series was it came about because of COVID, and we were in lockdown. And I've known for a long time that I'm an introvert and that I need a lot of alone time. But having this opportunity to just sort of live my life without any kind of pressure to go see this person or go to this party or this event kind of felt like, the perfect fit for me. Which feels terrible to say because I know so many people were suffering, but just from a very, very myopic view, it was kind of like the life that I always wanted. And as we've come out of it, I have continued to, sort of embrace that. I have a lot of people in my life that I just don't see enough of, and I love them dearly, but I find it very, very taxing to make plans to go out to do things. And, when I do show up, people are always like, oh my God, I haven't seen you forever, or where have you been, or I thought you moved or something, or died or something. So the series came out of those feelings, and feeling that what I was focusing on was very little moments in life. So there's a line from the play Our Town that I always inspired me since I was 16 years old, which is, does any human ever really see life while they live it, every minute? And that's not an exact quote, but that's the idea. And I just always thought that was a beautiful, beautiful thought. And I kind of felt like that was the life I was living, where taking the dog for a walk became a meditation on seeing these houses for the first time and noticing little architectural details, and being at home, just sitting on the couch with my dog in my lap, and being so aware of how that felt, and all the little details of mess around me and stuff. And so that's what I wanted to document. I wanted to do a series that I felt was my voice, was something that only I could be expressing. And this felt like, I've identified myself as a storyteller for a long time, so this felt like the stories I needed to tell. But I do think that there's a greater movement happening, because at the exact time that JOMO, The Joy of Missing Out, opened, there was an article in the Washington Post titled "Forget JOMO, Embrace FOMO." I mean, forget FOMO, embrace JOMO, to discover the joy of missing out. And it was all about how people are embracing this attitude. And then the New York Times, a few days later, posted an article called, said, why January is the best month of all. And the whole article was about how January is this very quiet month. There's nothing to do. The weather sucks. You don't go anywhere. So, like, I think this is bigger than just me.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, do you think you would have come to this realization if lockdown hadn't happened? Do you think it was something that you were sort of cottoning on to, or did lockdown really just go, look, you got nothing to do now, so now you can pay attention to the small stuff?
No, I think lockdown definitely made it clear to me. I think had it not happened, I would have continued to have this friction in my life of feeling guilty about not wanting to do something, forcing myself to do something. So, no, I think lockdown definitely played a part.
Yeah, I know my sister-in-law, who I don't think listens to the podcast, so I feel like I'm safe with doing this, but she was very much in the same situation. Like, she just ended up, spending time at home, tending to her garden and stuff, and all the relationships that she had that could no longer be continued, when they were able to be continued, I think she picked up about a third of them and just sort of let the rest go and was just like, I love it. I love it. Absolutely. It's very freeing.
Yeah, the surprising thing is I've actually acquired new friends since the pandemic ended, because I'm part of a networking group for artists, and I've made some very close new friends, and it's just like, God darn it, I don't have space for this, but I love these people.
I think as well, though, like, I mean, JOMO is something I think I discovered a little while back as well, because I think sometimes, I don't know whether there's a tipping point. I'm speaking about myself here, right? I don't know if there's a tipping point when you think you've got to go out with some friends and you go to a place that's so noisy you have to shout at each other and you go, I don't really want to do that. Or then, like, me and my wife often will go out for dinner and feel like we're just being a bit fleeced by every single aspect of the meal. And over time, you just fall these conclusions where you're like, I'm just quite happy being at home, thanks.
I mean, isn't that just a factor of getting older? We've just, we've done it.
I think, yeah, but do you think that's it? Do you think in some ways that's it? It's just the realization that sort of says, oh, we've had these days. Like, I've had my rock and roll times. I've been a real badass. I like to let people think. And but so you just accept and you go, do you know what? I did good times. I did loud times. I've been to those gigs. I've done all those things, and now that's okay. I don't feel like I need to chase those anymore.
I do know a lot of people my age or at this point in their lives who are sort of feeling like, yay, finally, the kids aren't around. I can do what I want. And they're like out all the time. They're seeing every show in Chicago, and they don't miss a thing. And I'm just like, I just exhausts me to even like look at their Instagrams and stuff.
But maybe that's it. Like you say, maybe there is like the classic extrovert introvert difference, and you just think, what I don't quite get sometimes is you can be like, I think I'm probably like, I'm a confident introvert. I think that's the thing.
Okay.
So I'm like happy to be in other places, but given the choice, I'll be on my own, thanks.
So I end up surprising people because there are points where I can really rise to the occasion and be very, in a group setting, be very gregarious. And people are like, "You're the most outgoing introvert I've ever seen." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. This is totally an act. This is this is me practicing my theater, training, where I just put on, I'm like, okay, showtime, But yeah, I can fake it on occasion, but like I said, I find it very draining. Um, as and as I get older, not only draining, but just sort of feeling like, nah, I'm not willing to do things I don't want to do.
Yeah, like it's just false pretenses, and after a while, you're like, I don't need to play that game anymore.
Yeah.
The so the pieces that you made then, as part of your like JOMO series, can you sort of talk me through them?
Yes, of course. Um, in creating the series, I wanted to combine a lot of elements that I felt were part of my heritage, let's say. And and that meant diving into my sense of always being like a craft kid. And we met each other through embroidery, and while I'm not embroidering anymore, I'm still loving textiles and thread and stuff like that. So I wanted to use things that yeah, I've always as a kid I used to build doll houses with cardboard and stuff. And so I wanted to take all of these materials that sort of felt like part of my life and apply them to the art as well, which sort of led me into like thinking about folk art and the way, you know, um, outsider artists, folk artists will use found elements in their art.
Mm.
And I'm really, really attracted to that kind of art. And I came to realize that it's because it feels so genuine.
Mm.
There's no pretense. There's no snobbery about it. And I do feel like, I feel like I'm an honest, down to earth person. And so that felt like it represents like the personality I wanted to project. And so I went into it feeling like I wanted to create three-dimensional elements with these other materials that would give it a different kind of feeling. That while I consider it fine art, it would sort of tap into the craft and outsider world as well. So the initial pieces I did started playing with taking elements of these paintings I would do these narratives of my life, my little
Mm.
life. And because these stories and telling are so small and in some ways not dramatic, and very not dramatic, I would use the materials, the 3D elements, to create drama. And so, a foot might be sticking out of the canvas, a remote control, would be built up in 3D.
Mm.
And, these, and it would be a way to force the viewer to notice things that they might not otherwise notice. And then I started playing with perspectives, again, because I was trying to make the work not so perfect. I wanted to, make sure that it felt like there was a hand involved, a human
Right.
hand. And in doing that, I started to really get a sense of this kind of off kilter. It like added humor, well, sort of the 3D elements and stuff, but it added um, it took things off balance, so it created a little bit of a tension and disturbing. So you've got these very quiet moments, yet they can feel a little. I mean, they can be very busy. They can feel a little strange, and sometimes people feel that they do sense like an anxiety in some of them, which I embrace. I want them to have an underlayer of other emotions going on there, because people tend, the first impression of the work tends to be, oh, it's so bright and colorful and happy, and it makes me happy and makes me smile. But I do think that there's more going on there. So So that's where the 3D pieces came, the mixed media pieces. But then as the series went on, I just out of, experimentation wanted to try doing some larger canvases. And if I was working on canvas, I wasn't going to apply all the 3D elements because canvas, it's harder to do that with. And so I started to do these narratives that are just very dense, larger narratives where it's just things are just very busy. There's just a lot going on. And just scenes of like my husband and I on the couch, my husband and I in bed, me having lunch. And, the idea that, we'll be sitting on the couch, we both are involved in our phones or our iPads and, ignoring each other, but we're together. So yeah, that's where, the work started to evolve. One last bit I started was I got inspired to start making sculptures with bisque vases. So I source vases that are already in their bisque form, and then I embellish them with, again, these materials like cardboard and polymer clay or air dry clays, and use them as a way of having a further discussion about some of the paintings. So all of the vases are connected to a specific painting, and they're just sort of like an add-on that sort of continues the emotional content. And that's been really fun because I'm not a ceramic artist, but I don't know. I mean, ceramics are having a huge moment these days, and I just see so much fun ceramic stuff that it really made me want to play in that space as well. So that's where the series is. That's where it started.
It's really interesting because it's like, so I have the random thoughts that go through my head when you're talking is like, so you've got these paintings that are just of very natural life. Like you say, people just casually slouching on the sofa. There's a sort of unpretense there. And then it also feels like your choice of the way you're painting them, like you say, with the outside art kind of vibe as well, there's no pretense there. So you're just really just trying to get down to it, not really try and make it anything particularly aloof, just being like, it's almost like you're having the joy of missing out on the fine art establishment at the same time because you're deliberately trying to be like down with it.
I think I wanted to feel like you're talking to me. I wanted to feel like like instead of writing it as I could, let's say as a short story, I'm painting it, but it's no different than me telling you a story and trying to imbue it with my sense of humor, my perspective, the way I would tell a friend about something and try to make it maybe more fun than it was.
Yeah, and I mean, I was quite interested. Who was I talking to the other day? I was talking about like outsider art or naive art, or I think sometimes they call it brute art as well. And it feels like it's art made by people who've got no choice but to make that art. They're just the people off the street who are just like, I've got to produce this stuff because this is my soul reaching out to the world or something. And I just find that in some ways I prefer that kind of stuff because it is so raw and so kind of honest.
I have always struggled with feeling like I want to get out of my head and where the art is concerned. And it's very difficult. And even now, I'm still struggling with like, oh, I wish I could just be one of these people who walks up to the canvas and just starts, doing something and magic happens. But, I plan these paintings, I sketch them, they evolve. A lot of times the three-dimensional layers are not planned initially. I start with the painting underneath, and then I sort of look at it and go, okay, this is the stuff I want to pull out, and then I start applying, the other elements. So things are evolving along the way, but I do really, if I could have my way, I would just be walking up to a canvas and going at it.
Hate those people with their cavalier attitudes. Where's the thanks? Let's go back to the start of the start, because my understanding is you're kind of self-taught. Like did you do like journalism and stuff academically?
I was an advertising copywriter
Mm.
in my wild youth, in my 20s. And then when I got married and wanted to start a family, as my husband likes to say, I freak out if I have more than one thing to do in a day. So I certainly couldn't figure out how to like go to a job outside of the home and then, be a mother at the same time. So I felt like I'd always been artistic, but I never felt like I had talent that could make me into a professional artist. But I did start trying to figure out like what can I do at home that can bring in some income. I actually started with quilting and then decided, well, that takes way too much time and you can't charge anything for it. So I moved on from that. And I got inspired to try painting with pastels. Another artist I saw inspired me to try doing that. And I started out just doing floral pastel paintings from garden books, from coffee table books. And when I got too many of them, I got sent to a guy who's a wholesale framer. A friend gave me the name. Now, I might be going into more detail than you need here. Anyway, this wholesale framer took a look at my 5 pastels, which I needed to get framed because you can't leave pastels lying around. And he was like, I think you're very talented. I really would like to see you do more of these. I'd like to see you do summer art shows, and I will help you and I will frame your paintings for practically nothing. And I, do this. So I started doing these pastel drawings, and this gentleman would pick me up on weekend mornings at like 6 a.m. in his van, and he lent me a tent and he lent me a display, and he would sit with me for 2 whole days and help me learn how to sell my work and be a part of this art scene.
Wow.
And I did that for a few years. Yeah, he was an angel, and he's no longer around, but he just was my biggest fan.
Mm.
And so I did that for years and had a pretty lucrative art career. And then, gosh darn it, I started to get bored and wanting to challenge myself more. And pastels were also very messy in the house. So I started to paint with acrylics. And that led me to taking some classes at a neighborhood place. And, and then between the teacher and myself, started to feel challenged to do different kinds of themes. I feel like the 30 years I've been an artist have been, my art school, because not formally trained, but I feel like I've constantly been trying to grow and challenge myself. The point that we met was, the beginning of the social media
Mm.
world. And as a parent, uh, parents were just starting to hear about their children joining this thing called Facebook.
Mm.
And so parents were starting to join Facebook to keep, see what their kids were up to. And my husband and I joined out of curiosity. And within minutes, we were friended by all of our children's friends. And we couldn't understand why they'd want to be friends with us. And we didn't understand that it was a numbers game for them.
Right.
But as a result, Monday morning would come and my Facebook feed would be packed with like photos of these teenagers engaged in their private behavior over the weekends. And because it was the first generation, they had these phones with these cameras and they would go to these parties and they'd be taking pictures of everything. And so that was just incredible to me. And these photos, I thought they were beautiful and fascinating, and photojournalism and just all sorts of wonderful things. And I was inspired to document them as I do. So I started out painting those images. And I even went through a critique group process for a couple of years that kind of left me in tears, where you go and you sit in a room with a bunch of other artists and they tell you what your work needs. And that, I came away just feeling like I have this idea, it's a good idea, but it's not working. And just one day I had a light bulb moment where I wonder if I embroidered these. I wonder if that would mean something. And so I started to embroider them as like line drawings that sort of mimicked the Facebook um, feed with, you know, the thumbs up and the comments, and started to add found commentary to it. And it was kind of like in that moment, all these things came together, because embroidery was, you know, motherhood and female work. And then, you know, it was a question of privacy and, you know, as a parent being a voyeur of your children and invading their space, and all sorts of things came together. So that was a really exciting moment to start doing work that was that challenging and controversial at the time, frankly. I got a lot of pushback from people who told me I was the worst parent that ever lived. So, oh yeah, I had I got featured on Huffington Post. And you know, it was like I got picked up by a gallery, and Huffington Post featured me, and there were like 430 comments on this post, and a whole lot of them were like, "This is the worst parent."
Was that because you were letting your children get up to all this mischief or something, or because you were just sharing it in a different format or something?
Well, people felt that I was stealing their private moments and exploiting them. They felt that this was, you know, disrespectful. That, you know, this was, you know, these were teenagers, and they felt that I was judging them and you know, critiquing them and presenting them for the world. You know, when you're an artist, I guess there's a stereotype of the self-absorbed artist who just like plows ahead. I mean, everybody, right? Jackson Pollock, you name it. You know, they've all been like assholes. Well, this was my asshole moment. I just and I guess you might have to cut that out.
No,
But
no. And I'll push back, because the thing is I never interpreted it as you doing anything malicious whatsoever. And if anything, to me, it was always just like, you're just documenting this stuff that somebody's already put out there. So you're not invading anybody's
right.
privacy because they've already made it public. And it was the fascinating thing, I think, was at the time, it, like you said, it is this emerging thing, which, funny now, 10 years down the road, is just natural, if anything, a bit cliche. And if anything, the kids are going back against it now. But at the time, it was just amazing to be like, I'll just post pictures of my friend throwing up on my lap or whatever.
Right. And my feeling was, look, this was all behavior every teenager has done for decades, for generations. This was just the first time people were documenting it and posting it in a public space. And that evolution, that cultural shift was just fascinating to me. And I couldn't not do something with it. Once I had the idea, there was no sense of, is this right or wrong? You know, I just had to do it. And yeah, I mean, there were people who felt it was wrong of me to do that work. And I'm not, it's like, in retrospect, I'm very proud of it. I'm even proud of being like a little naughty and being controversial. At the moment, it was very uncomfortable. People in my suburban town that I lived in started to find out that I was using pictures of their kids. And even though they were not detailed pictures, you know, the kids would recognize them.
Right.
And then when our parents found, I mean, I got a call from a father asking me how I sleep at night.
He's such a rebel.
Yeah, no, and that's the point. I'm not. So it was a very uncomfortable moment. So then I moved on from that and did some textile work, mainly because at a certain point I felt like I was using other people's stories, and I really wanted to use my own stories. So that's when I started doing a series I called 56, where it was, I turned 56, and it felt like sort of I was in a melancholy space of sort of thinking about, wow, this isn't what I thought my life would look like many years ago. And so I did these works I'm very proud of, that were these beautiful sort of melting images with thread of, you know, I thought there'd be trips to France. I thought there'd be enough money. I thought there'd be, you know, vacations with friends. I thought there'd be a house, a cabin in the woods, you know, and I did these beautiful images in embroidery that just then there was threads just dangling down from the bottom to indicate that these images were just melting off the page. So I was very proud of that series, and it was very well received. There came a point where I just physically did not feel good doing the embroidery work. It's too sedentary, and you're just sitting on a sofa or a chair or something, making the same motion. And it really took a toll on my shoulders and neck, and it was just too difficult. And because I do art full time, it's not like I was only doing it for an hour here and there like some people do. It was what I would do every day, and I couldn't do it anymore. It was uncomfortable. So I wanted to get back to painting. And the next few years, I mean, that's probably like 2015 to now. My art has often been dictated by our financial situation.
Right.
My husband had a career that sort of went up and down and up and down, and so there'd be like years where I'd be like, I need to sell art,
Yeah.
sell. So then I'd be doing like whatever I felt was the most consumer friendly work I could do, and then there'd be years where, oh, we're doing great, I can do like stuff that's a little more challenging and out there. So we're in a much more stable place, a different place now, and this has been for a few years. And being at the age I'm at, I am feeling like it's now or never to do work that I feel is my voice, what I want to say, and not worry about the rest of it. So that's when I started digging into what became JOMO.
Is it the not worrying about it, the bit that's different? Because it feels like your work's always been your voice in some form or another, and your, processing your experiences and the things around you. Is it the consequences that you're not bothered about?
Yeah, it's definitely the end goal has made it a factor. If the end goal is sell, like as I came out of the embroidery series we were just discussing, I spent a number of years doing pet portraits in embroidery. And that actually was a fairly thriving business. But again, there came a point where, it's all commission work. It's the same thing. And it wasn't feeling like satisfying me creatively. And again, there was the physical parts of embroidering. So yeah, I definitely was making choices based on whether that was something our family could absorb or not.
With the needlework, I mean, had you got any previous, like, did you do needlework and textiles when you were younger?
I sewed.
Right.
I and as a parent, Halloween was my favorite time of year because I would start making costumes, and I would start bugging my kids, like when they could barely talk, in late August. What do you want to be for Halloween? Because I got to get on it.
August, yeah.
And then and we have all these photos of them as toddlers, like looking miserable in this giant like cow costume or Dalmatian costume that I had
spent, there's you beaming in the background,
weeks making. And then they get older, and I've spent weeks making this beautiful costume, and 3 days before Halloween they're like, I don't want to do that, I want to go as a ghost with a sheet hanging over me. But so sewing was one of my favorite things to do. And yeah, I mean, as a kid, I was like the decoupage, the window box kid, you name it, I was in it.
Because the thing that struck me about those pieces, because like, as we said at the time, they were really interesting because it was looking at this emerging idea and all of that sort of thing. But there were like two pieces of work. There were kind of the images that people had put on Facebook, which were kind of line drawing and really great illustration, like really lovely kind of monochrome things. And then you also had the ones with the catchphrases like YOLO and those kind of pieces that were much more like thread painterly, that was almost like beautiful portraiture. And the thing that struck me is like both of those forms are just so well executed, like so nicely done, that in a way it surprised me, like you say, that you weren't like needleworking all the way through and that you just kind of had a go at this, because they're just so well done.
Well, thank you. I've always sort of thought embroidery's not that hard. I feel like it's not hard to make something really cool looking. I mean, there's so many people who do beautiful needlework, and people are just so drawn to the tactile look, feeling of it. That I think my painting background informed. You're talking about the family portraits, where I was trying to do like these sort of old time looking portraits of kids in very extreme expressions, and then putting the YOLO and rolling
WTF.
RFOL or something, rolling my lap. Can't even remember them anymore. OMG, I remember that one. So yeah, I think that my painting expertise, my trick in working in color, and I'm sure other people do this too, is that when I would be doing colored textile work, I always blended threads. Like I never just took, 6 threads or 3 threads of the same color. I always made sure, like if it was a skin tone, that there were like 3 different tones going on at the same time. And so that that variation, I think, gave it, more nuance. So that's one of the things that like I that was my way of painting with a little more depth, as you would, layer colors on to a painting. This is how I would layer colors onto an embroidery piece.
And like with the painting, and for a lot of those pieces, and indeed even now, you do a lot of like human anatomy and stuff like that. I mean, did you go to any classes to learn that thing, or did you just learn that through repetition?
Oh, I mean, that's just no, that's observation, doing it for a long time. I'm
Mad skills.
I'm certainly making a point in this current work to try to not do it so well. Again, that's like a struggle for me. I want the figures to be a little off.
It's a bit like there used to be a comedian in the UK called Les Dawson, who was a very accomplished piano player. But one of the things he would often do for comedy style is just play the piano a bit wrong. And it's harder sometimes to play the piano a bit wrong than it is to like play it well.
Yeah, my natural instinct is to try to make things look as perfect as possible. And I fight against that every day. I don't want to be that artist anymore.
Thanks for joining me on another Needle Exchange. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to email hello@needle.exchange, that's NEEDL.exchange, with any thoughts, comments or feedback. And if you want to keep up with all the news, sign up to the Needle Exchange mailing list at bit.ly/needleexchange. See you next time.